Jayadvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotar Saptashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Thank you everybody for attending tonight, Thursday, May 20th. Just a few minutes prior, I received a message from Maharaj. He's not feeling well enough to host tonight's meeting, so he asked me to host the meeting, which may be a horrific disappointment for everyone, because we count on him for answering questions, and Istagosthi is characteristically a question answering session. But I consulted with my wife, who knows a lot more than I do, and we thought that there's various ways we could approach tonight's gathering, since we're all here, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of us, which works out mathematically really well, because we were considering that in the absence of the voice of authority, that we could perhaps give some space for all of us to share at least a little bit, maybe 5 minutes worth, on my wife suggested the topic of how we came to Krishna consciousness in 5 minutes or less. And as we were discussing last night on the Tawako channel, it's the shy people that often have a lot to share, but don't share. And we thought that tonight might be a great chance to not put everybody on the spot, but give everyone an opportunity to share. And Maharaj says, never felt better in my life. Hare Krishna. It's nice to hear. Anyway, grateful that Maharaj would ask me to host.
Our Sridhar Maharaj used to say that in his last days. People would ask him how he was. Never felt better in my life.
Oh, Lord Chaitanya.
No.
But I'm not in my last days. But still, it's a great line.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, so now we have now more than 12 people, but that's all right. It works out fine because not everybody is the same. So, Tulsi Priya, since you had this brilliant idea, perhaps you would like to be the first to implement your brilliant idea. But first, you need to unmute yourself.
I think we should see if everyone's on board with it first, because maybe there's other things that people want to discuss, unless.
Sure, it is Istagosthi, and traditionally Istagosthi, at least in my formative years in Krishna consciousness, meant you discuss the orders of the spiritual master. In Philadelphia anyway, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu would come back from the GBC meetings and say, this is what's going on in the rest of ISKCON, and this is how we're going to look at it for the next year. So yeah, if there are certainly concerns that we can discuss as a group, come to a consensus on. Yes, Meena Prabhu.
I have a hot potato.
Uh-oh.
But I think now is not the right time. So I'll just have to hold on to this hot potato. It's something that I would really, really appreciate hearing intelligent, reasonable discussion on a particular topic. And I think this is the place and this is the assembly to discuss reasonably on a hot topic. But I don't think it's for tonight. So watch out on dangers.
Well, now we all want to know what it is.
Well,
If we're not going to discuss it, then let's not bring it up, in my opinion.
Okay, good plan, good plan.
okay.
I had a follow-up from last week, if I could, for just a minute.
Please, Haridas Prabhu, Jai, all glories.
What I wanted to follow up on was the very nice discussion I thought we had last week that was posted or introduced as vegan kind of talk, but also led into cow protection.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about it after the meeting, and I had been thinking about it for a while, having lived at Gitanagari. I had a feeling for what goes on there, and we talked about that last week. And I'd been thinking for some time that there's a opportunity for connecting with people who are already to some degree or other sensitive to the cows, especially those people who have family farms, and they often have small cooperatives and they're involved in organic farming. They describe themselves as very involved with their cows. And I may be a little naive about that, but you can go and see sometimes they post their schedule. We rise at 4:30, by 6 or 5:30, we're in the barn milking. This is our day. We have to take care of the fields. We go on, we do this, we do that. So I looked it up a little bit, and I had searched before, but I found that there was one dairy in, and you may be familiar with it, in Scotland. It's called the Ethical Dairy. And they took to heart the idea that you should not separate the calves from the cows at birth, which is one of the major complaints against dairy farming, as it's done on a mass scale. So they were a small operation. So they tore down their regular barn and they built family style stalls for the cows. This set them back over a few year period of great loss of money, but they managed to pull out of it. And then they began their process to allow the cows and calves to stay together and produce 2/3 of what they used to get. So if you're a farmer, that's a big loss. And they didn't know what to do. They decided to turn a lot of their milk into cheese and market it that way. So I guess where I'm headed is they have these kind of co-ops in various places. Ohio, Pennsylvania's well known for dairy farming. I looked up on a map, where are the dairy farms condensed, especially the Northeast, Pennsylvania, Ohio, places like that. New England, not as much in the West. So they have these co-ops, and they're very eager to show that they're involved with their animals. When they market their milk, it's a different world. So I just thought that as a group, as a voice, they would be an interesting possible potential Vaishya community that's already in harmony with the land. What we haven't done to some degree, but we've done in a small way. There are many people that are doing it a bigger way. And their next step could be, oh, maybe their co-op could create a co-op retirement home, who knows, for the cows, and discuss that kind of a preaching up. And it may have been done already, but that just sparked that after last week's, I thought, important or rich discussion. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Make sure. Okay.
Tulsi Priya, you're frozen there somehow.
I am? Well, I'm not frozen to me.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Your hand is up, it's raised, but you're motionless. So somehow the connection's not there.
Well, the only thing I can do is leave and then
while
come
she gets
back.
back online. Yeah, that sounds great, Haridas Prabhu. That's certainly a great field that I don't know how tapped it is at present, but brilliant.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, now you're back.
Okay. So I wanted that Haridas Prabhu speaking reminded me there was something else that I wanted to say last week, but we had run out of time. Prabhu, he brings up a good point that there's possibly some cooperation possible between devotees and commercial farmers. But I remember something that I was told many, many years ago by Gitanagari Prabhu, who was at Gitanagari Farm. And he said, it's not possible to have a commercial dairy and do Goraksha. He said that Goraksha is an economic model and it's not a commercial model, meaning, and as far as I know, because I studied Hari Krishna Dasi's book on the subject that she wrote many years ago and read a lot about what Prabhupada said, that the idea was always that the devotees have their own farms with their own cows and that they have milk for a restaurant in the city and for the deities' use and for the devotees' use. And if they have anything extra, obviously it would go to a restaurant or they can use it for barter. But Goraksha is an economic
Tulsi Priya,
model.
your transmission's really choppy. Do you have other programs open that you could close, or
Let me see here.
maybe a RAM issue? Maybe you can close your browser and keep Zoom open.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that right now. So what did you hear that I said?
We'd got clearly up to the point of you starting to read Hari Krishna Dasi's book.
Okay. The idea is that Goraksha is an economic model and it's not based on capitalism, because in other words, cows are not they're an economic resource, but they're persons in cow bodies. So you have a relationship with them, unlike cows in a commercial dairy, that they're just assets and they're resources that can be used. So we can have all kinds of transitional methods for getting to the model of simple living and high thinking and Goraksha, but Goraksha is a completely different economic model than what we're used to, than what we know. And so the devotees in Gitanagari got criticism because when they started off their herd, they were buying cows that were giving milk, but not the calves, and they had to make a decision, and so let's say you have, this association with other dairy farmers. Well, for the cows to keep giving milk, they have to give birth. And then what happens to the bull calves, which nobody has use for? They have to get sold, they have to get killed, and they're turned into food. So the whole, Prabhupada was talking about bullock carts and, using cows to grind grain. And I know in the Chopati, temple farm, where's that place? The town where the eco village is. They were doing a methane.
The Govardhan Eco Village.
Yeah, the Govardhan Eco Village. They had a methane digester. So it's a completely different way of dealing, you know, of economics based on the cow and the land. And, you know, it just goes back to what I was saying about how we don't want to change our lives so that, you know, so that we can have cow protection. So the next best thing that people come up with is to go vegan, which, you know, disposes of the issue altogether. And I don't know how that will be resolved in our society, ISKCON, I mean.
Yeah. We got most of your transmission, but it's still a little choppy at times. So
Yeah, I cleared out of the browser. I'm going to clear out a few more things that are open here.
okay.
I could say, I mean, I don't think I spoke that long, but I could say things again in a shorter version.
I think we got most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Your hand is still virtually raised.
I will get it down.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. So
Cool. So just curious, are there any other, let's say, lukewarm potato topics that we could discuss tonight? You know, not the palm burning variety, but something that we can. So Dukkha Huntry says audio problems. Is that for everyone or just for Tulsi Priya? You can unmute yourself. We can hear from you.
Well, it was mostly for Tulsi Priya's transmission.
Yeah.
it's just Krishna's arrangement that my comments have no value, so he just chopped them up.
Heavens.
Not true. Untrue.
Not at all true.
Untrue.
So are we going to do how I came to Krishna consciousness? Oh, Maharaj is the host now. Okay.
Maybe that's inadvertent. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. So
Well, if
inadvertent.
if Vaisheshika Prabhu was on this call, he would immediately be taking Haridas Prabhu's comment and turning it into action points and having a flow chart made up for the next direct action steps that we can all take immediately, and have another meeting in 2 weeks and make sure that we're all interfacing globally with local ethical dairies. But Vaisheshika Prabhu is not on this call, so.
One thought is that if you want to continue this topic sometime, you might want to invite Dhruva Maharaj to share his thoughts.
Dhruva Maharaj.
I agree.
Oh, that Dhruva. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, not the one who's in charge of the pole star.
I was going to say.
He's probably busy.
Yeah, that would be very cool. I'm sure he's got plenty to say. We can certainly do.
Maharaj,
What?
I don't know if you heard any of what I was saying, but I wondered if you had a comment on it about, you know, the idea of Goraksha being a complete economic model and not just, you know, how we've been practicing.
Yeah, my idea was to invite Dhruva Maharaj because I only have theoretical knowledge, but certainly anything that's philosophical that doesn't work financially doesn't seem to have a long life. It's meant to be, it's meant to make sense. So that means doesn't necessarily mean being a commercial success. Prabhupada had self-sufficiency in mind, but how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
That requires some thought, experience, guidance, and so on. And it's really out of my field. Right, Krishnadasi, I'm sure, has a lot to say about that. Dhruva Maharaj could speak to that. Adhikarta might speak to that. You know, I'm a city slicker.
Okay, thank you. Should we go to the hot button
Haridas
topic?
Well, Haridas in the chat box boldly proposes that perhaps Meena would like to share her topic. I mean, we could discuss and see if we come to some kind of consensus based on our understanding of what we've learned from Prabhupada, and hopefully we can digest whatever hot potato might be there or not.
Well, if I bring it up, please don't ban me from the group, because I really depend on the Devotees Association and their ability to tolerate all kinds of questions. A lot in Devotees Association, not all devotees, but some devotees. And I have my own understanding about the issue. So if I raise the question, I'm not challenging and I'm not, trying to prove anything. I would just like to but I know it's a very emotional surcharge thing. And it is, and so that he had to try and, wade through that. Like I say, I have my own understanding and I'm comfortable with it, and I'm not, on the warpath or anything. But I did want to hear a little, if it's possible.
Could she repeat what she said briefly, because my internet cut out right when she brought it up?
Oh no. Yeah. So your internet cut out, and on Meena's end, I have to say that I think there's a wind issue there. So every time the wind blows into your microphone, it's a little blocked up in terms of audio.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you can't really hear me very well.
Well, now we can hear you because you're right close, and I think there's a break in the breeze.
Yeah.
But wind does tend to play havoc with any kind of microphone screens. So
I don't even know where the microphone is, or I'd screen it. Did you hear enough of that, or do I have to do it again?
No, I'll try to do my part as the quote unquote moderator, the pro temp moderator, to repeat what you said for Tulsi Priya and other who may not have heard it in toto. But Meena Prabhu was saying that where she is, she hears still a lot of talk about the quote unquote poison issue, and it's very disturbing and polarizing, and it kind of reminds me of the recent administration and the exit of the recent administration. There's stories get bandied about, and so you said that at least for yourself, you've come to terms with it, and to some degree, and maybe you'd like to share how you've what your own view is, based on your own knowledge of the actual situation.
You would do that, wouldn't you?
Well, you did say that you had come to some peace with it.
And I never learn. I shouldn't have said that. I'm on the spot. Can you hear me? Hopefully
yeah, we can hear you fine. We can hear you fine. No problem.
Hey. What I'm doing with that is, I don't know. I don't know one way or another. I have no facts. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I know that Prabhupada's not an ordinary person, and Krishna, not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. And so that's kind of like where I'm at, I just don't know. And it doesn't affect me hearing from Prabhupada or trying to serve the message, Prabhupada's message, and association with devotees. It doesn't interfere for me, but I see for some people it does. It really, they become mistrustful and angry, and they're convinced of all this stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Just briefly.
Mhm. Well, since we might not be in a position to get a full talk on this from Maharaj at least tonight, I can at least share and riff off of what you've said and say what my take is on it, for what it's worth, which might not be worth much. But I see the caliber of devotees who were taking care of Prabhupada, and I can't think of any better examples of human beings. And I can't think of any better examples of people who love Prabhupada more. So the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. And I also see, as I often see when I hear talk of devotees who are, proposing this theory or that theory, or are very disgruntled about one little particular topic. And usually it's a case, I've discovered it's usually a case that those who get really behind these kind of, I'll call them theories, are those who maybe there's something in their own life that it's very hard for them to deal with. And so that they, instead of dealing with their own issues, they create, latch on to other issues and promote them as kind of a smokescreen. It's just a human thing. It's not a devotee thing. And I'm sure Haridas Prabhu has come across this a lot in his work, but it's something that Anton Boysen talks about a lot in his writings. He's a pastoral counselor. We have a high demand religion, and when we fall short, we find reasons why we fall short, and it's really easy to point fingers and say, this is what's wrong with ISKCON. This is what's wrong. Rather than just deal with a simple thing that it's really hard to follow the basic principles of Krishna consciousness, or whatever the issue may be. But what it really goes back to for me every time is that I look at the people who are taking care of Prabhupada, and I have no reason to doubt their motives. I have no reason to doubt that they loved Prabhupada and were doing everything they possibly could within their power and even beyond their power to try to care for their spiritual master. There's no evidence that I've ever come across that's compelling in the other direction, except that I know that there are a lot of devotees that are unhappy in their own life, and what we say, misery loves company. And so it's so easy to point fingers when really, we're all criminals in the material world, and there's a course of rehabilitation, and it's hard. It takes a long time. I heard that Charu Prabhu in Australia one time asked Srila Prabhupada, and I don't know if there was another time that Prabhupada was asked this point blank, but Prabhupada was asked, Charu Prabhu said, Prabhupada, how long does it take to become Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada thought for a moment and turned around and said, about 40 years. He might have given different answers to other people, but at the time that Prabhupada left our material vision, I don't know how old the oldest devotee was in ISKCON, but probably in their 30s or something, not very old. And when you're in your 30s, your body is still full of all kinds of chemicals that make you do all kinds of things. And, we're all at the mercy of Krishna's material energy. And now, fortunately, we have the benefit of having so many years of experience. And now all of those people, if they haven't already passed, are, full of mature realization and have dealt with a lot of their issues and are now able to be free of those raging hormones that create a lot of problems in our early lives for everyone. So
I can speak to the matter if you'd like.
Please.
I was there in Vrindavan during Prabhupada's last days. The first thing is, I think that there is a legitimate poison issue, and it has to do with Facebook and social media and email and the tendencies, as you said, these human tendencies. So we get poisoned. That's, I think, fair to say. Those last weeks, at least last months, last weeks, with Srila Prabhupada were profound. They involved deep loving exchanges between Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. They involved an extraordinary glimpse into, or an extraordinary opportunity for us to see what Srila Prabhupada was made of, what was the power of his spiritual strength, his devotion, his clarity of mind, everything. It was an extraordinary time. And for me to see it reduced to the level of a grade B movie is really sad. There's such substance there. There's such profound teaching there. There's such a display of loving dealings there. And to see us diverted from that to what should I say, to a crime film, means that we're depriving ourselves of something very valuable. That's the first thing. Having been there, I saw no evidence whatsoever of anything along the lines of a conspiracy to murder Srila Prabhupada. None whatsoever. And when you look, and the motive is seriously lacking as far as I can see. Usually the people who have a conspiracy theory want to direct it at the late Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who of course inspired strong feelings in people, feelings of indebtedness, feelings of gratitude, and feelings of resentment, depending who you are or where you are. And so what I've seen is that it's really directed toward him. And I don't see a motive there. Pragmatically speaking, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in the most enviable position in the world. He was Srila Prabhupada's personal, most intimate servant in his last days. And, if you looked at it from a self-centered, what can I get out of this point of view, the longer that Tamal Krishna Maharaj served Srila Prabhupada in those circumstances, the longer that Srila Prabhupada lived, the stronger Tamal Krishna Maharaj's position would have been. If Prabhupada had lived another 5 years with Tamal Krishna Maharaj in that position, what would be Tamal Krishna Maharaj's status in ISKCON? So I don't see that there's an advantage, that Prabhupada, that he's going to bump Prabhupada off so that he could, assume a high position. It doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a very sensible and logical person. It doesn't make sense. If he wanted to be big, the way to be big is just stick with Prabhupada for as long as he lives. And the longer, the better, because the more you're together with him in his last days, the more your stock goes up. So that's first of all. Second of all, I don't see that, what I saw from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, what I saw from Bhavananda Maharaj, what I saw from Bhakti Chara Maharaj, what I saw from everybody there was love for Srila Prabhupada. Not envy, not resentment, not fish in the corners and how can we, get him out of the way. None of that. It was such an extraordinary time of profound loving dealings, and Prabhupada himself made it more profound in that whole incident of wanting to go on Govardhan Parikrama. He just churned everybody's feelings to an extraordinary degree. The idea that Bhakti Charamaj would poison anyone, it's like, you know, and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm would shoot up a schoolroom, right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's so 100% out of character that it makes no sense whatsoever. And he was the person who was most responsible for seeing to Srila Prabhupada's nutrition. Pavan Andamaraj, you know, that the idea that he could be involved in such a thing is completely out of character, just utterly out of character. Whatever faults you may find in his character, this would be utterly the opposite of the kind of person that he is. If I were to look for a person who I thought, you know, might have had it in him, it might have been the late Hamsadutta Prabhu, you know, who had like a very beautiful side to him and a kind of a gangster side to him. But what I saw there also is that he was, you know, I don't believe he would do such a thing. I saw, you know, the same kind of love from his side. And in addition to which, he had no opportunity. He was not one of the most, you know, he wasn't doing body service for Srila Prabhupada. So, you know, and then you have to assume a conspiracy, and with such an enormous risk. Imagine if you got detected, if you got found out in the, you know, in ISKCON, if you got found out in ISKCON Vrindavan that you were poisoning Srila Prabhupada, what would become of you? You know, how many minutes would it take before you would become protoplasm stretched out on the, you know, on the sands of Brahmanredi? It's just, you know, outrageous. Srila Prabhupada was on top of things. He was, you know, as we know, he was sharp till the end, and he had access to everyone. At night, different devotees would take turns chanting for Srila Prabhupada and accompanying, you know, just being with him. You know, his personal servants would take rest, although they might be called for any time, but they would take rest. And, you know, whoever was there would take a shift, chanting very quietly with these tiny, tiny kartals. I was there sometimes. Many, many devotees were there. And Prabhupada could at any time have said something. All he would have had to do was say, call Guru Kripa. Guru Kripa Prabhu was, and Yashodanandan Prabhu were there in Vrindavan. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada said, Guru Kripa, such and such person is poisoning me. That would be, you know, and Prabhupada could have said it. He was not under anyone's control. They weren't gagging him. They weren't misleading him. He could have at any time said, this is the problem, or what to do. And people would have risen in force to do whatever it took to rescue Srila Prabhupada. The theory also assumes that people had an extraordinary knowledge of pharmacology, you know, that apart from chanting Hare Krishna and all these things, they figured out which poison to get, where to get it from, where to hide it, how to administer it, all of that, you know, in Vrindavan. You know, all of the pieces there. I mean, I just don't see the pieces falling together. So we do a report and we find out that, you know, there's X amount of arsenic in a hair, or we listen to a tape and we say, we heard this snippet, which is, you know, which reveals everything. You know, I've listened to the snippets. I don't have the knowledge to talk about hair analysis. Yeah, there's arsenic in rice. There's arsenic in Ayurvedic medicine. There's arsenic in so many things. I just don't see a case. I don't see a case, and rather I see what you say, that you know, people, naturally we have strong feelings for Prabhupada, and then, you know, if this idea comes into your mind and starts to grab hold, you become outraged, you become angry, you become you know, this, that, and the other thing. Understandably, because Prabhupada's our life and soul. Prabhupada's our life and soul. But I just don't see it, you know, and I have a little bit of a reputation for being a contrarian, for being, what would you say, insubordinate to authority, for not just, you know, oh, you know, my seniors have said it, so it's there. Now, I was probably more compliant back then, but you know, certainly if something like that were going on, you know, you can't stand by and just say, oh yeah, well, I guess it's all for the best. It's insane. So I didn't see anything like that going on, and rather I saw the contrary. B, it's out of character for the people there, including Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who, in my opinion, you know, whatever problem you might have had with him personally, was sold out to Srila Prabhupada. I don't see, I see this enormous, I don't see a gain for any of the supposed participants. I see rather an exceedingly high risk of loss of everything, loss of reputation, loss of life, loss of all spiritual credit, you know, likelihood of going to the Krimi Bhojana for untold lifetimes. You know, who's going to do that? That makes no sense. I see that Prabhupada was there and had the opportunity to express himself, not in some oblique way, you know, where he just says something about poison, that's aha, it's all about poison, you know, but where he could really put it on the line and say, Guru Kripa, they're poisoning me. Therefore, he could call him any time of the day or night and say, this is the problem, what should I do? He could have, there were so many people he could have called, and he didn't. And he had full power to. So I just don't, you know, none of it computes for me. None of the evidence, so-called evidence, impresses me. I won't get into ad hominems, because ad hominems are a invalid form of argument. But I'm not, the arguments themselves, let's deal with that rather than what I think of this person or the character faults of that person. I just don't see it. I don't see the motive. I don't see the smoking gun. I don't see, I see everything going the opposite of what this theory entails. So for me, it's a sorry thing that so many devotees have, you know, I know very nice devotees, they want nothing to do with anyone these days because, you know, everyone poisoned, we were all poisoned, involved in poisoning Prabhupada, or, you know, this person, that person. And so this is going on. It's Maya. That's what I see, is that Maya is acting to bring down people's own individual spiritual lives, to induce them to commit Vaishnava aparads, to speak prajalpa of the worst kind, to allow their minds to be disturbed by ideas that have no, that are unworthy of credence. And meanwhile, we're missing out on the real depth and and profundity of what Srila Prabhupada was showing us and teaching us in those last days.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, thank you.
Athena had her hand raised. Athena, would you like to unmute?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams. Excuse me. I know I'm not qualified to comment on this, given that I'm relatively new to ISKCON and I have not spent any time really researching this, but I'll just share, if it's helpful at all, my experience when this came up. This was actually a few years ago when I had just come into Krishna consciousness, and I had become friends with a relatively young in age devotee, but senior to me in ISKCON and Bhakti. And she felt the need to just tell me it's almost like to save me, to let me know of some of these horrible things that happened in ISKCON. And one was this poisoning, and others, the really crazy thought that Swami is a murderer. And I remember I was really shaken by it, of just because my whole, when you first come to ISKCON too, you're just this bubble that devotees are just perfect and they're just such a breath of fresh air from just all the materialists. And it really shook me. And again, I was quite young into the faith and even spirituality, but I remember turning to a confidant completely separate from Bhakti and telling just the story. And she said, stop right there. Do not associate with this person anymore. They are putting poison into your mind. And it really stuck. And I as gracefully just disassociated. And I truly don't even know where this, like, if I call a devotee, is right now, because if you are seeking such things, you're just putting more poison in your mind. And I can't believe that someone who's just seeking that in a faith can continue practicing sincerely. I believe she moved away, and I don't know where she is now. And I may be presumptuous in saying that, do even these devotees right now, where Meena Mataji is, if that is what you fixate your mind on, that is what you're thinking about, you're not thinking about Krishna, and you're going to be so polluted by this poison that you won't be able to practice anymore. And I'm really happy I did that. But also, I think just in once it's reiterating what the things that stuck out, what Maharaj said and Akendra Bubu said, yes, this is Kali Yuga. And I know when I first came in, I thought, again, every devotee is a pure devotee, so pure, but they're working through their own purifications, and misery loves company. There's so many crazy conspiracy theories out there. And in a more layman's term, this is a haters society. People just like to hate on others. And I was really moved by the story that Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj just shared. Just the fight, I guess, transcendental fight of do we listen to our spiritual master and bring him on a bullet cart for his last parikram through all the holy dhams, or do we try to, he might leave his body, so let's try to keep him alive. I mean, those stories are so touching. How could you ever think that they would want to harm their spiritual master? There is just so much love in there. It is just ridiculous to think that these people who just loved Prabhupada so much would ever want to do something like that. And even if I can't imagine if you want to say a conspiracy, they wouldn't even be disciples of Prabhupada if they wanted to kill him. That just fundamentally does not make any sense at all. And if you want to take it a higher spiritual perspective, Meena Prabhu said, well, not a blade of glass happens without Krishna sanctioning. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. Krishna would never, I firmly ever would never let something like that happen. There's a story in the Chaitanya Chandramrita, and I possibly don't know all the names, where there was this one, like maybe a Mayavadi or sadhu, who wanted to defame a devotee and put all the meat around his house and said, like, yes, you ate meat. And then the devotee who's so humble was like, yes, I'm a liar. and then this person ended up getting leprosy. I mean, just got leprosy, just try to defame someone's reputation. I mean, not even try to kill someone. And Krishna will give that reaction. And if any of the devotees there tried to kill Prabhupada and actually poison Prabhupada, I mean, they would have been killed. Krishna would have taken their lives, would have sent something so horrible. And you just see the personalities, Bhakti True Maharaj, Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. I mean, they are like the faces of ISKCON. I mean, Krishna controls this world. He would never let something so horrible happen to his pure devotee. And then those who were serving Prabhupada at that time to not have just horrible reactions and let them fall away from ISKCON, because it's a huge offense. And then from a practical, I guess, standpoint, because I remember when that happened, I'd Googled and heard the tape, but this is like years ago. And when I had also just asked a devotee at the time of how do you reconcile this? And it was somewhat similar. He was Indian bodied and similar to what Jayadvaita said, just I think in India, maybe, again, things get lost in translation. Prabhupada was also a quote unquote chemist as being a pharmacist, and he called it all poison. You know, it's like, and then another explanation is Prabhupada had a very witty humor in one sense too. And he could have just in a very human way jokingly say, you know, what is this poison you're feeding me? You know, but not actually poison. And then again, just any sort of, you think medicine in one sense could be quote unquote, and especially in India, maybe just the wording of what they choose as medicine is called poison instead of medicine. But anyways, I haven't heard this topic brought up, and I'm not saying much as you're seeking it, but if that is you will hear what you want to hear, you'll seek what you want to seek. And if you're associating with devotees who are saying that, it's going to cloud your consciousness and pollute the mind. And the moment I just decided very gracefully, just really kind of not having that association, I never heard it again. And you could see what you want to see. And I personally just, I feel like there's other things I could say just personally, and I'm not an expert. And I don't even know if I'm in the right place to say this. I just think it's so incredibly outrageous. And if you just use your own intelligence and discernment and see the devotees who were serving Prabhupada and disciples and what they've done for ISKCON, what they're doing now, it wouldn't make any sense that they would do something so horrible to their spiritual master who they love so much, and they receive absolutely no horrible reaction from Krishna. And I also just firmly believe Krishna would never, ever, ever let that happen to his pure devotee.
Hare Krishna.
I'd like to point out that I left a couple links in the chat box for anyone who wants to do some more research on this topic, because the devotee did a lot of research on it. It's in the chat box. There's a video and also a book.
Cool. Thank you, Sankarsana Prabhu.
Wow.
Thank you.
Athena, may I say, that was awesome. Thank you for being so self-expressed and vulnerable and strong in your conviction. That was really beautiful. We have great
I
hope.
agree.
Great hope for you for preaching
I
Krishna
agree.
consciousness.
Yes.
Jai.
Yes.
Jai.
Thank you so much. I could only hope to receive just your blessings. Thank you so much. May I even be able to say anything that's helpful in the future. Thank you so much. Krishna.
Jai.
Frank.
Thanks for speaking.
Well, this has turned into a quite livelier discussion than I even possibly could have imagined.
It's good to get these things out. And, you know, it seems like there's a point where you have to let them go, you know, at some point, you know, individually, but the topic never seems to die. So it's good to talk about it when it comes up.
Yeah. And I like what Maharaj said at the outset, that the real poison is the prajalpa, and the internet has a way of being the empowerment of the active, foolish class of men. So it's a matter of what we feed ourselves. Tulsi Priya's hand is up. I can see it.
I would like to propose for a future Istagosthi, when Maharaj said it's Maya, you and I were talking the other day how nobody ever says anymore, I'm in Maya, he's in Maya, that's Maya. And I'd like to discuss where Maya went because she seems to have disappeared.
Well, it's clear that it's gone to Facebook. Dukkha Hantri had her hand up.
But it's so pervasive and ubiquitous that we don't consider it Maya anymore because it's just normal life.
Well,
I'm okay, you're okay.
yeah,
Yeah. If you're looking for Maya, I can probably find her.
yeah.
It kind of rhymed.
Yes.
Thank you so
Anyway, I
much.
would also like to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This was the kind of discussion I really appreciate hearing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Dukkha Hantri, did you have more that you wanted to say?
Yes, I also wanted to tack on to behind Kamalini and to say that I really appreciated Atina's contribution tonight, and I'm glad we have such active young minds still among us and learning, young and learning minds. Gives me great, I don't know, makes me enlivened.
Yeah. Well, we're at 7:58 and almost 7:59. Are there any other huge issues we can we can shelve until next session? If not, perhaps we can in fact just
Book edits.
yeah. Sankarshan Prabhu list, he did you can look in the chat box. He's got a couple of links there. He's done some homework on the point. And on behalf of His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, I want to thank everyone for attending and participating and making this Istagosthi memorable and completely worthwhile for all concerned.
Thank you for your leadership
Hare Krishna.
and a good Istagosthi.
Srila Prabhupada ki
And
jai.
a nice kirtan. Haribo Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you very much. And hopefully Maharaj will be well enough to join us again in a more active capacity soon.
Thank you. Hare
Hi.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
All
you.
right.